Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to January 2021 Development Insights Group for the Downtown Chamber. I'm your host, Joe Benish. It's nice to see everybody. Today we've got a really neat presentation for you from some architects who did some work on one of the significant pieces of architecture in downtown Des Moines, and they'll talk to you a little bit more about that in just a moment. Before we do that, though, I just would like to, I know everybody's got this down by now, but please mute your mic as we're kind of talking today to make sure that we're reducing noise. And if you want to turn off your video, that helps with bandwidth too. It's nice to see all of you, though, so if you want to leave your camera on, that's perfectly okay with me too. With that in mind, what I want to do is turn it over to Sheila to talk a little bit about our sponsors. And I will, at this point, Sheila, take it away.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's so great to see you. Kind of in person, but I just want to say, first of all, thank you to Joe Benish for always helping to facilitate these virtual events. He's just awesome to do this, and he does such a nice job for us. So Joe's company, the Ingenuity Company, specializes in strategy, visioning, design thinking, diagramming, and organizational development, for those of you who aren't familiar with him. And he has so graciously helped the Downtown Chamber in so many ways with his expertise. So just want to get that out because he's a great guy. If you don't know him and haven't worked with him, you should check it out. So thank you also to those who are making this program possible for today. Surety Hotel, DLR Group, and Slingshot, as well as Jeff Magner and Carrie Boyens and Zane Muntz from the DIG committee, who have helped immensely put this on. Carrie and Zane are our new chairs for 2021. And just thank you very much to all of the members of our DIG committee for what they're going to be creating for you for the upcoming year. And with that, I would like to introduce to you our event sponsor, IMEG. Today we have Carrie Boyens from their Business Development Group and Andy Thielen, their Senior Principal and Client Executive. And with that, thank you so much for sponsoring this and helping us make this possible for January. I'll turn it over to Carrie and Andy.
Thanks, Sheila. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to sponsor and to be part of the DIG committee. We have some exciting things that are going to happen this year. Can everyone see? I'm sharing my screen. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Very good. So, just through here. So I just want to talk real quickly about IMEG. Andy and I are going to share a few things about IMEG, both as a national company and here in Des Moines. Our mission is to be recognized as the innovative, quality-driven engineering firm of choice. And we do that in many ways. We have some key differentiators that we strive for. One of them is that we are a market sector focused engineering firm, meaning that we have people that work in very specialized areas, and that helps them become experts in their field. So just to share a few statistics about IMEG, we have 50 locations and are just over 1,500 employees. And we are very proud to be an ESOP, so we are an employee-owned firm. We are engineering-only services, so we are full design for engineering, and our core services would be mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, civil, and technology. We also have a whole host of specialty services, and you can see them off to the side here, which include acoustics, architectural lighting, building performance analysis, building certification, commissioning, security, and utility infrastructure. So we have been in the Des Moines area since 1989. We have about 40 people in our Des Moines office, which is located in Urbandale. And I'm going to turn it over to Andy, who leads our Des Moines office.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Carrie. Yeah, so a little bit about IMEG from a history standpoint. Our roots go back a little over 100 years, but IMEG as a company itself was formed in 2015. And at the time we were KJWW, and one of the things I often hear is that IMEG purchased KJWW, and in fact, we in reality, what we did is we formed IMEG. So we formed IMEG when there was a merger with KJWW and TTG. And then we operated that way till 2017. But you can see in 2017, we acquired 4 other companies. And so at that point, we all adopted the IMEG name. So really, the IMEG name has only been used in the past 4 years. We've been growing a significant amount, acquiring 4, 5, 6, 7 different companies every year since then. About 25% of our growth is organically, and about 75% of it has been through acquisitions. And then, oh, go ahead, Gary.
Yep. So this is a map that kind of shows all of the locations we have across the United States. We are clearly a Midwest firm that has spread pretty successfully to the West Coast, and we are working our way east now. So DIG is a committee that brings you recent, current, upcoming projects. And we thought it would be fun to show you some of IMEG's cool recent and upcoming projects. So I'm gonna let Andy talk about those.
Yeah, so just a few of them. And speaking of downtown, some of the kind of larger projects that we've done downtown that people may know: the Central Library, Wellmark facility, Wells Fargo Financial, the Allied Nationwide building down there, a bunch of the work in the sculpture park. So there's been a fair amount of large facilities there that we've worked on. But here lately, Clive Safety Building, that's a building that has fire department on one side and police on the other. The DART electric bus, this is kind of the beginning of their electrification of all of their buses. They're planning on going forward having electric buses across the board. Animal control facility is another one we're working on. The next one. So Des Moines University is a large facility that we're currently working on doing the MEP engineering on that, and that's been a fun, exciting project. The Johnston City Hall, and one of the things about this, the new City Hall is on the bottom right, you can see there's solar panels that line the entire roof of that. And that leads into kind of our next item, is that we really pride ourselves on doing a lot of high performance design when it comes to the engineering aspects of buildings. And we look at things like, for example, a couple of things we did at the time. The Wellmark was the largest LEED platinum facility in the country. Prior to that, we designed the very first geothermal LEED platinum certified data center over in the Iowa City area. So we really pride ourselves on kind of pushing the limits and stretching the engineering abilities of different buildings. And with that, I think that about does it. If you want to wrap it up, Carrie.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I think I'll turn it back over to Sheila. If anybody has questions for Andy or I, we need to keep moving through the program. So if you could save those to the very end.
Okay, actually, I am going to turn it over to Joe to go ahead and get started with our presenters. Thank you again, everyone, for being here.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sheila. And there we go. Back to all of you. So we're very fortunate to have a couple of architects with us today to talk to a little bit about the Surety Hotel and the work that's been done. As you know, that building on the corner down there has gone through many iterations over the years, has a lot of historical qualities to it as well. So it's my great pleasure to turn it over to the two of you, David and Stacy, to kind of walk us through what's going on there, what's to come, and kind of the historical perspective and all the things that went into that project. So again, before I do though, I want to make sure that everybody is utilizing the chat function for questions as they come up. We will be running through the presentation and hold the questions to the end, but I will be keeping track and help work through some of that stuff with you all towards the end. But there will be time for questions in addition to the ones that are provided in the chat. So with that, David, Stacy, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Joe. I think you can go. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll kick it off with this slide. This was actually a rendering that DLR had worked on during the design process, and to really kind of sort of set that stage of what this could feel like. And as you'll see from some of my images, it didn't look like this when we started. So, I think the other thing I'd like to point out is that it's almost 4 years to the day that I interviewed to work on this project. So I could definitely use up the time today. So Joe, keep me on task if I'm going down a rabbit hole.
Will do.
Next slide. So just a little bit of kind of what we're going to cover. I wanted to kind of give Aparium an opportunity to introduce themselves too. And we'll just kind of go through some introductions. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the historical research that happened, kind of what we had to work with, sort of the existing conditions, sort of the historic process that we went through, and the way that we approached laying out the building so that it could preserve that historic fabric. And then a little bit about sort of the drivers of the project and the diagrams, which were the result of those drivers. Building additions, there were just a few that we did to the building. Most of it was a renovation, but a little bit of an addition to the west. We had a pretty extensive team that we were working with on this, and we'll kind of go through that. And then I'll let, and I think Stacy and I are kind of interject a little bit as we go. But then towards the end, we'll let Stacy kind of lead that into your design effort. And hopefully we still have some time for question and answer. Next slide.
That's good.
Tara, do you want to say anything?
Sure, I'll just take a couple minutes. Many of you I've met through the chamber and being, with the hotel since we opened on November 11th. But, this is, I said it on the day we opened on November 11th, that this is the best job decision, a career decision I've ever made. And our opening day was probably the best day of my career. And I say that because I've worked at 5 different hotels in this market, and I have probably done, I don't know, close to 100 wedding tours and just different event tours since we opened. And I'm just excited every time people walk in the door because I'm excited about the building. I'm passionate about what has been put together. People always say you did a great job, and I say thank you like I had anything to do with that. That I give a nod to both David and Stacy, but it's a beautiful place. And if you have not been here, if you and your team have not come down for drinks, I highly recommend it. The picture behind me is of Mulberry Street Tavern. This is also, and I hate to say it, the first hotel where I'm super proud of what Chef Mark and Food and Beverage Director JC are doing in there. Reviews are amazing. We just moved to number 4 on TripAdvisor. So think about that. We moved to 4 of 56 hotels in the Des Moines area. We're number 4 right now in 2 months. That's unheard of. And so people are loving the space. They love the design. They love the feel. And this is a nod to both David and Stacy. People walk in and they don't feel like they're in Des Moines. And I think when people say that, I know I've got them. That's my sales in me talking, but I love the building. I love every bit about it. I'm proud of it. I'm enjoying every bit of selling it. And I just encourage you to listen to what David and Stacy say. There's a lot of passion and heart and intent, I think is a good word, behind this building. There were so many things that were intentfully thought through and just pulled together perfectly. So with that, I turned over to David and Stacy. Well done. I can't wait to continue sharing this with Des Moines and those that visit Des Moines, and just continue making sure that you guys are known as the kind of the rock stars of this project. So thank you.
Thanks, Tara. You're the best.
Thanks, Tara. I can vouch for the food and the drinks. I was able to eat and drink there the night before it opened, and it was spectacular. So David Boss of Slingshot, principal here. I'll kind of go into it a little bit later. Stacy, already.
Yeah, so thanks, David. So Stacy Patton here. I work at DLR Group, and it's great to see a number of my colleagues even on today. Thanks, guys and gals, for joining. I lead our hospitality team nationwide. We do some international work, but primarily I oversee our national interiors for hospitality. I actually have had the great pleasure of working in Iowa and Des Moines over the past, gosh, a decade doing other types of projects. Actually have done quite a bit of educational work in the area. So that's a little bit of my connection to knowing Iowa and Des Moines so well, is just spending all that time working hand in hand with clients. And yeah, thanks for having me. We're excited, as David said, to get more into kind of behind the scenes of the project. And yeah, thanks for coming.
Next. So I'll give you a little bit of a sort of a background of Slingshot. I'm one of 3 principals in the firm. We have our main office is in the East Village here in Des Moines, and but we have 2 years ago opened an office in Iowa City also. Some of the projects here that you might be familiar with: Exile Brewing, Lua opened last year. Not very good timing for opening a brewery, but it's a spectacular place. Hopefully we will be able to get out to some of these places a bit more soon. Peachtree, which is kind of right next door to our office. And also we've done Liberty Hyatt just further up the street. And we'd kind of worked on a lot of historic projects on 6th. So when this project came up, we're very interested in being able to work on another one on that street. Next. Just a little bit about Slingshot. Really, why do we get out of bed in the morning? Why do we do what we want to do? You know, it's very important to us that we engage with as much of the community as possible, so that we can make a big impact there. And really, this is sort of our mission statement, to kind of remind us to truly engage and to not to do it boldly with the idea of transforming a place, and but be true to that place is kind of our guideline that we do our work with. Next. And really just a little bit about our process. It's, you know, really how do we do our work? It's very important for us, and it kind of ties in with our name, is that, you know, a slingshot won't do anything if you don't pull it back first. And we really need to understand and dig into what's going to make a project great. And we do that with words more than kind of as a first step. So we ask a lot of questions and really try to get to defining what the true drivers are for that project. And once those drivers are agreed upon, then we start to put that into a diagram, into a concept, and kind of write a narrative that describes what this is going to be before we start to draw. Because that's where the sort of the meat of the project is. That's where the meaning is, and that's where we're trying to get to. And across the bottom of here is sort of the time frame of this particular project. You know, we started out with sort of a concept diagram, a pullback process in 2017, and about this time of the year, we also kind of did a historic survey of the property, sort of a condition survey, so that we also knew kind of what we had to work with. 2018 design and permit set, really building on that momentum, trying to bring all of these various stakeholders together, kind of an extensive design team. And then 2019, 2020 was construction. But really our goal again is to maximize that impact. So preparation is key to us. Next. Stacey, do you want to?
Yeah, thanks, David. So a little bit about DLR Group. We are a international firm, but we have a lot of local, really community-based offices, and one of those for us is in Des Moines. So one of the things that we did as we started this project, working with Aperium, was to really leverage our local office as if they would be local guests. And so though we do bring such a broad international kind of appeal to our hospitality design, we really wanted to keep it hyper local and hyper focused. And so that was one of the, again, just big benefits of our team there, mixed with my team in Chicago to produce the design for this project. But we really believe in, just fantastic storytelling to our projects. And that's one of the things that we'll share with you today, sort of abbreviated, but the storytelling is so powerful, and sort of the understanding of why and motivation and passion that we want really our guests to feel the moment that they check in or come through the door. So as David described, our two firms were really, it just sort of was a firework of chemistry coming together on resonating with the local experience and really embracing local collaborators. So we are, again, a big firm committed to sustainability as well. So with all of our projects, we do look to make great choices for our owners, not only on materiality, but just the longevity of our experiences that we create, so that we don't have to create really turnover, that these spaces really do become part of the neighborhood and have a legacy. Thanks, David. So these are just a couple highlights of some of the projects that we've done here recently. And I can actually say with passion that each one of these projects that you see on the screen followed a very similar process to storytelling and engaging the community, really focusing on a rich restoration of a lot of elements. A lot of these projects had a number of really challenging obstacles to overcome. And I think you can see too, just from the example of our work, that we do really love fun, spirited spaces. Although we can design for very serious environments, hospitality is such a fun sector, and it's really those places that we want to motivate our guests. We want them to come back. So through artwork and really intriguing design, we feel that it's always a fun endeavor to see how people respond. So, as Tara mentioned, like, wow, the reception of the spaces, that's really the mark of success for us in our design.
So sort of the project really began because it is a historic tax credit project. So shout out to Alexa McDowell for all of the work that she did, all the research, finding the old photographs, the old stories, and kind of weaving that all together. It really helped us with the narrative, and also gave us some good references as we were putting sort of new things back into place. But proportions of what was there originally were very important. So these are just a few of those old photographs, and I guess I'll try to give you a few facts and figures about the building. Building was sort of put into service in 1913, and at that point, it cost $450,000 to construct this building. It was actually called the Hippie Building when it was first opened, named after sort of the main the person who paid for it. And Hippie was the owner of the streetcar company here in Des Moines, and had recently gone bankrupt. So the timing of this building is right when the streetcar company stopped in Des Moines. And I think there was actually even like a streetcar station on this site that was tore down to make room for the building. So really The period of significance for this building is 1913 to 1925 is really what kind of set our sights on how we would approach sort of all the design elements of the building. And I'll kind of explain. So the hippie building was 1913. 1925 is when the building was purchased by the Southern Surety building, hence the name. And then it was bought for 1.5 million. So, you know, within 12 years, it had more than tripled in value. Let's see. So, you know, we worked with Alexa to define all the character defining features. I'll try to show you some of those pictures coming up. And the architect for this was a local firm. It was kind of the biggest project they ever did, Sawyer and Watrous. And it was the tallest building in Des Moines at the time it was built. So this kind of predates the Equitable. Further up the street, that was 1925. The Fleming right next to us was 1907. So just to give you a sense of sort of the time frame for this building. Next. These are some of the shots from the condition survey. The facade is architectural terracotta. Had wood frame windows. Some of those wood frame windows were still existing on the north elevation. All the other ones had been removed, but that gave us a good opportunity to make sure that the new windows that we were adding would match those things, so we could measure those things. So we did a lot of terracotta repairs around the building. Next. There was one staircase in the building. Often buildings of this time period just had one means of egress. We would be adding another one to here, but we also wanted to bring back the original staircase to its original intention. And we believe in the 50s, this building was enclosed, which is sort of the current, which is really building code. So, so it had a fire, it had protection for fire for egress. But you can see in this right-hand image, from the second floor to the first floor, they had removed all of the wood handrails, all of the infill, and replaced it with kind of a mid-century sort of travertine stone on the steps. The sort of a little bit more of an Art Deco feel handrails. So we would be removing all of those things, and that was why the period of significance was where it was, really in the teens and the 20s. But the staircase on the upper floors was very much intact, but we needed to remove its enclosure and do any repairs for things that had been removed. But really great sort of stencil cutout in every riser so the light could kind of flow down in through this stair. Next. The primary tenant for this building was a bank. It was, I think originally it was like what's that? Not sure. Iowa Loan and Trust. And so this was the main bank space. And you can see some of the plaster column capitals, but you can also see some of these columns, it was all removed, and you can see travertine on the columns. So we were going to strip that back and restore the plaster ceiling. Next. These are some upper story photos of windowsills, conditions. The one, the right-hand image, you know, we had, in the research, it came up that there were maple floors. in the building. And what we did is we actually had existing flooring removed, which often had a subfloor and 3 layers of flooring over the top, to try to determine, did we have the maple floors everywhere? And we did, and that was a huge find. We also found evidence of the mosaic tile in the corridors, so we wanted to bring that back. And then also there was a great, I'd say maybe 50% of the marble wainscoting was kind of spread throughout the buildings. There've been new openings installed in different places that removed some of it, but there was still quite a bit of it that we wanted to bring back. Next. So really kind of leads into historic strategy, or what do we have to work with, and really, we wanted to limit the amount of things that we were asking for, right? Like we also wanted to elevate the existing fabric as much as possible, and really we were aiming for no conditions on that submission. It's always a good intention. Doesn't always quite work out that way, but there were additions that we wanted to add to the building. So we felt that was an ask. We wanted to put a canopy on the front of the building. The historic pictures did not have a canopy, although there had been a canopy added since then. The vestibule and lobby really wanted to not have an airlock. It was very important to Aperium that when you walked in the door that you had a really good sense of the space. One of the things that really guides the way that their hotels work is that they want you to discover things, but you want to have it be you want to have lots of clues. Like you don't ever want to feel like you're lost, but you also want to feel like, oh wow, look at this, look at this, look at this. And they don't want it to be too super obvious. So you won't see a check-in desk right in front of the front door when you walk in. It's something that you kind of know where it is, but it isn't the first thing that you see. But so removing that vestibule was important. Now we did keep the transom to kind of mark that vestibule, but that was one of those asks. The Aperium also likes to be able to have sort of that texture in their guest rooms. So that was kind of exposed structure. So it was really, how could we do that? And that was one of the asks that really did not happen. We really put all the plaster back, but we exposed that wood floor. And sometimes there's even some mosaic tile where there was a dentist office in the building. And we just left all of that memory, I guess, that history embedded in the floor. We didn't take out tile to try to put wood back. We just let it be. The hall alterations, we did need to kind of shrink the hallway in one location. So we felt like that would be an ask. And then also the bank space, we wanted to subdivide into a ballroom and a lobby. And really, how do we do that effectively and sensitively? Next. So really in that pullback process, we're really trying to define those drivers and then also put together a diagram so that we can kind of anchor these spaces and build that consensus. Where would the second stair be added into the future? Where would that have the least impact on the fabric? Where would we put restrooms on that first floor? And on and on. But really, these are our drivers that drove all the decisions. So we wrote these down before we drew anything. Front of the house drives the back of the house. We weren't going to let the restrooms dictate what location was not going to drive the design. The kitchen had to minimally affect, like you still had to keep the servicing of that, had to work, but we didn't want you to necessarily know where the kitchen was. So it's really, how do you achieve some of those things was the challenge. We also wanted to leverage the courtyard. There was a a bank drive-through that was here in the building. And that was going to be demolished, but really wanted to make a good outdoor courtyard area that could not only serve the restaurant, but really let it kind of be able to leverage in multiple places. The sequence of events which unfold through the space. That's where I was kind of talking about how you're kind of discovering things as you're walking through, but you're being led. All the high-rise requirements that we needed to work into it. And really, how do we make this project specific to the place? We talked a lot about what was right for Des Moines. It wasn't, I know Tara kind of mentioned how the this place doesn't, like it feels, it goes beyond Des Moines, but yet we still want it to feel comfortable for Des Moines. So there was a lot of dialogue about how to do that. And really the restaurant is the priority. And one of the things that, you know, that Imperium kind of talks about is that, you know, this is a restaurant with rooms upstairs, not a hotel with a restaurant in the lobby. You know, the restaurant is what drives the project. And that public experience, you know, any one of Imperium hotels, if you go into their hotel lobby or their restaurant, I'd say 20% of the people in that space are actually staying in the hotel. It is a great place to hang out for locals. And that's very, I think, unique for a lot of hotels. Next. So here's sort of these diagrams of, you know, how are we going to fit 137 guest rooms. We really studied the historic corridor. Where were the original openings? Can we make the new layout match to maximize the number, sort of that sequence in the hallway? And also to maintain that corridor width to the maximum amount possible. So really the whole sort of elevator area became sort of that area where we wanted to keep that and then also open up the stair as much as possible. Next. So the additions, so we had sort of a courtyard wall that we wanted to build that would kind of screen off from deliveries. And really sort of that, the scale of that needed to respond to the building. And the height of that was kind of locked in, and that was pretty important. But then also the kitchen addition, the height of that, we knew that we would have make a bare unit on top. So really try to create a datum that that the kitchen could do, and then also kind of the receiving area. And then in between those two, create a solarium space as an addition that architecturally feels like it belongs in that time period, but really helps to leverage that courtyard. So these are just some of the drawings that we had done in the part 2 documentation to describe that. And then also the canopy getting added. You know, we actually hung it from structure that we added between the windows on the 2nd floor so that we wouldn't have to penetrate the terracotta on the exterior wall and damage any of that fabric. Next.
David, I don't want to interrupt your flow here, but I just want to be cognizant of the time. We're about 4:11, and I just want to make sure that there are time for questions and time to get through the presentation. Doing great. I just want to do just a quick time check. So
I knew you'd catch me. Next. So here's just a few pictures of the final product of that addition. I think Stacy will kind of explain sort of the connection with the copper in the design, but these are a few of those images of the addition and the courtyard. Next. And then inside that addition, sort of the exposed structure and bringing light in. It does face south, so we were careful not to let the space overheat. But all this brickwork is all new. but it feels like it's been there since the beginning. Next. So here's the whole project team. So Perium, very involved in the project. Slingshot, Raker Roads for structural. Genus helped with landscape design and streetscape. Civil was ERG. Modus did all the MEP and technology design. Interiors DLR. Historic was Ake Consulting. Kitchen consultant, Next Step Design. Acoustic consultant, Engineering Dynamics. Lighting design was MRD. FF&E Neil Locke, and general contractor was Walsh. Next. All yours, Stacy.
All right, great. Thanks, David. So I think you can tell, guys, how even though the photography final product looks very seamless and maybe easy, 4 years of blood, sweat, and tears was definitely the name of the game. So what I'd love to do is just give you a little bit of insight into how we began to form the interior design. As David mentioned, our team was very much a part of the process to uncover the history and really try to pull out of that history what are some really interesting stories. And that's usually what we find with these historic buildings, is that you could find multiple stories, multiple owners or tenants of the space, or just really intriguing places that you could take an interior design concept. But we really wanted to speak to a sort of a new language of a modern lifestyle. And so that's what I'm going to share with you a little bit today. This is a photo that you can see from the sort of main arrival. So yeah, you can go to the next slide. So, one of the fantastic things that Aparium does is really think about their spaces from what they call a translocal perspective. So while Aparium wants to really be genuine and authentic to its place and its locals, they do want this sort of atmosphere and end result to really pull in guests from all over the world. So you have this kind of two parts of really wanting to embrace what locals want, but also what would someone in New York like to see, or LA or London, and how can, when they as guests arrive, see themselves in the space and see themselves a part of that atmosphere. And that's ultimately what continues to drive Aparium hotels to stay fresh and stay relevant. So for us, when we started thinking about what was the intended use of the building, as David described, it was for banking and insurance. And so its original intention was this exchange of money or sort of, goods for insurance. And so when we think about what we do today and we think about what really brings us meaning today, it's really more of a social type of exchange. And so we really built upon this notion of social currency and how it really is evident once you kind of see the final product. And you heard Tara talk about, locals and guests hanging out, and this really creative buzz that's happening in the lobby and in the living room and the restaurant. And so we really wanted to support the narrative of the Surety and its financial history, but really bring that forward to today and showcase what we really truly love about being around each other. So let's all get our vaccines so that we can go back to hanging out together. So this notion of social currency is really just one underlayer, but it, again, as David described, was such an important aspect to putting the restaurant forward and what I call the living room forward as a place for this kind of new social exchange. So you can go to the next slide. As we do with many of our concepts, they tend to, for these projects, be quite layered. As we started with the social currency, that was one way to kind of really hit it and support Surety and the city of certainties, that sort of, again, those ideals. But as we got further into, as we sort of felt, let's now talk about our specific guest. And what we know about the past was that mostly gentlemen would frequent this building, and they sort of had a flair, and they of course had a persona. And so we kind of focused on what this guest of the past would look like or talk like or have a vibe like. And so, this is just one image of many gentlemen of the past in their fashion. And we were really inspired by this, and inspired by, again, as it parlays into our modern era. So the design has distinctly masculine touches. You'll notice a lot of kind of heathered tweeds, a lot of leathers, woods and sort of formality and tailoredness to a lot of it. But yet you'll see the contrast where if you imagine the guests today and their fashion, it would be more relaxed and more casual. It would be a little underdone, and it would be much more kind of welcoming and way less formal. I think as a society, we're all very, very much relaxed. Nobody walks around in a top hat anymore. So this was a part of our development of almost what you would call a muse, to define some additional attributes to the space. You can go to the next slide. So as we talk about our guest and we talk about ourselves in the past and today, another intriguing aspect to as a inspiration piece. And these are just some great photos of some of our favorite vignettes of the space, where you really start to see those copper tones coming through. You see the green, especially on the front of that coffee bar. You see that, again, this contrast of dark and light and sort of these very intriguing textiles really come to play together in many of those conceptual ideals that we had. So the restaurant, of course, such a big feature. And this restaurant was really, again, designed to feel as though, okay, at the end of your day in the 20s, you sort of park your horse and buggy and you want to go get a beer. So this was meant to feel as though, again, that this space has always been here. It is meant to feel as though anyone could come in. You could come in jeans, you could come in a suit. And really capturing that American tavern in a contemporary way. The great thing about this space is that it has such a fantastic street front. So we've always wanted to embrace the windows. And so we really created this stage with the bar and the cook line to be this very active flame, if you will, so that from the street, people are really just drawn in. This palette of this space is obviously very warm and cozy, really punching it up with those sort of burgundy tones. And what I love about this space, beyond the aesthetically, you're sitting right next to the chefs. You're sitting right next to the bartenders. You're in the action. And I think that makes for such a sort of a theater, if you will, of cuisine. I think that's one of the most successful parts of this design, is that you don't really get bored. You're always kind of seeing something happening, and that feels really good. So of course, the artful details on this project are astounding. I mean, I think one of the proudest moments is the amount of local artisans that we represented here, working with Moberg Gallery, Olson Larson, Liz Lidgett, 3 amazing galleries in Des Moines who put forth, gosh, probably over 500 works of art that we hand selected with Aperium. And so we have, I think, about 28 original pieces of art in the hotel as a whole. And all of those artists were vetted to be either from Iowa, live in Iowa, maybe are from Iowa, but went to New York or LA and came back, but they all have true ties to the state or the city. And that was a definite, got to check that box first. So you're seeing a number of really intriguing pieces, even in just a sampling of these photos that, again, really goes back to our commitment of being local, not just talking about it, but actually doing it. And so I love that these artists can now bring in their family and their friends and clients and see their art being hung in such a vibrant space. And so this is kind of the grand image, one of our favorite images, I think, of the space. Really captures the vibe, the sort of symmetry and classicism, but as well roots down into something that you feel very comfortable in and very welcome to. So that's just a little bit about our design process. I wish I had 2 more hours. I could go for the long version, but we're so proud of the project and thankful to the client, Aperium and David and everyone involved, because yeah, after 4 years, you start to kind of grieve it. You're like, oh, I kind of want to be back in design again, working on it. So thanks all for coming, and happy to take any more questions that you guys have.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, David. I'm back now. I apologize for that little internet hiccup on my end. I lost the question, but Mark Hollander did type a question into the chat, and we've got just a few minutes left. So I want to give Mark a chance to ask his question if he can remember what it is. And then if anyone else has any questions or things that they'd like to ask our panelists, there's a few minutes to do that now as well.
I knew you guys talked a lot about obviously the bank and changing things around there. Did you ever incorporate the vault, or did you guys get rid of that? Or
Oh, yeah. So no, it's still there. And then we found another one. So yeah, no, we went round and round and round about, should that go away? And of course, David can speak to the historic nature of those. But yeah, I think that's one of the other surprises that you find when you enter into the ballroom, because that's where you can see them. And it's you see a lot of other historic properties where the vault is kind of maybe out in more plain view. But yeah, they're there.
Mark did type his question in. The open door area to the sidewalk that Amici used to have, is that still there? Is that being utilized in the same way, or has that been repurposed for something different?
No, we'd actually removed the doors that came starting out on the sidewalk. The interior floor level is slightly higher than the sidewalk. So I think he'd also probably remember that there were these short little handrails that were there before. And really the design was really led by being able to have seating along the glass, but then really connect to the courtyard as the outdoor space instead of directly to the outside sidewalk.
Thank you. Well, I want to be fair with everybody's time. It is 4:32, so we're just a couple minutes over. So I want to just give an opportunity to say thank you to David and Stacy for giving such a nice presentation. I'm excited about this project. I'm sure everybody on the call is excited about the project as well. So with that, again, I'm Joe Benish. I will post a video of this that I'll put together for you so you can review it and go back and watch it again. But with that, thank you for everybody being here today. Thank you for your time, and I'll turn it back over to Sheila just kind of do something.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks to everyone. Have a great day.